Universal Declaration of Human Rights is the world's response to the Second World War. Second World War, you had 50 million innocent people killed in addition to all the soldiers and sailors who were killed. So after the Second World War, the world formed the United Nations, and it said its purpose was to prevent World War III. Why was that important? Because with nuclear weapons, which were used in the Second World War, a third World War could be the end of the human race. The key point for us is the Charter of the UN calls for respect for human rights, and it says that disrespect for human rights is what led to the Second World War. In order to produce the Universal Declaration, there was a UNESCO committee that surveyed all the nations of the world looking for common ethical standards. This was important because what happened in the Second World War was indiscriminate destruction of civilians. That means non-soldiers, non-combatants. Firebombed cities, nuclear weapons used on civilian populations, displacement and destruction of entire population groups, concentration camps in the East as well as the West, where people were destroyed, inhuman experimentations on people where they were used as human material, and that's a quote, not as respected as human beings. So in order to prevent those kind of human rights abuses and to be representative fairly of the world, there was a survey done across cultures, and that's what the Universal Declaration is.
Human rights are much more important than any regime's rights. If any authoritarian is against human rights, the international community can do something to protect the universal values. So these are rights every country should respect.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is this seminal document that its 30 articles really boil down what are the central rights the human person has. When we say human dignity, you're saying, okay, I agree with human dignity, but then you want to get into what are the specifics. Well, here they are. It's these 30 articles that centrally focus us on what the specifics are that governments have agreed around the world that these rights are each individual to human beings, to each of us.
There's a group of NGOs and other bodies and institutions trying to carry out the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I call that the matrix of human rights governance networks, and I call that 10 networks. An example is in Europe, you have 4 of the networks relating to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, or PACE. You also have the Venice Commission, which is the European Commission for Democracy Through Law. You have the Fundamental Rights Agency in Europe, and then you have, not but least, the important role of the European Court of Human Rights. Each of these networks plays a standard-setting role, an assessment role, an implementation role, and then an enforcement role.
From the moment a baby is conceived, the baby is communicating with its mother chemically. When a baby is born, it communicates with its mother through sight and through touch. So why should people have freedom of speech? Because it's inherent in who we are. We can't think without having somebody talk to us. So as you go out from the parents to the immediate family, you get into all the other groups, the churches, the labor unions, everything else. And so as you look at everything that we consider a basic human right, it reflects a characteristic of the human person.
Particularly in the past century, that's a lot of the efforts being to raise the awareness of human rights, which is basic God-given rights. And there are more and more people know about it and respect that. But as a whole, is human rights being improved in recent decades or not? Okay, I think most people will say no.
Well, look at what you have right now. You have Iran and China on the UN Human Rights Council. They don't agree or follow these 30 articles, and yet they say, well, we're for human rights, but they say we're for community human rights, which means the state defines your human rights, which these rights are not defined by the states, they're defined by God. They're defined by human dignity.
When the Communist Party sentenced me to prison, in the jail, the CCP ordered more than 6 prisoners to live with me in the small room. And in the prison, the CCP ordered the prisoners to beat me in the room because I tried to help the disabled people to protect their human rights. In 2005, the Communist Party started a campaign about the one-child policy, the forced abortion. I started an investigation, and we exposed them online. The Communist Party wasn't happy we exposed them. So, the Communist Party ordered more than 300 government officials to kidnap me and beat me a lot in the car and took me back in Shandong province, put me house arrest again, then put me in black jail 3 months. Then the CCP put me in real jail more than half a year. When the sentence ended, the CCP took me back to my home, and my home became the jail. More than 80 guards surrounded my house and village. After 20 months, I escaped to come in the embassy of America in Beijing, and the CCP have to let me come here with my family.
The Universal Declaration is the standard of human rights. It is the only agreed international standard of human rights. No nation in the world voted against it at the United Nations when it was issued in 1948, 3 years after the UN was formed. So everyone knows they're accountable to the rights in there. And that works even for violators. They try to make excuses or find ways to explain what they've done, but every nation knows they're accountable to the Universal Declaration.
And it is today still the best basic statement of human rights we have in international law. So Americans should be committed to it because much of what's in there is perfectly consistent with the US Constitution.
I think it's essential for people to understand that the United States Declaration of Independence and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights go together. And one way that people can become familiar with this reality is by studying the State Department's report from the Commission on Unalienable Rights from a few years ago. They did an excellent job going back and looking at the first founding principles of our Declaration of Independence and then relating those to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I think it's an important document and it causes people to take seriously what are those core fundamental freedoms that both the European community and the global community in the United States share.
The democracy and the rule of law will help the society have the checks and balances. That is very important. Democracy can change the government. If the people know the government did a bad thing, after several years they can use the vote to change it, right? In the rule of law, the leader is not above the law. If they are against the Constitution and the law, we can sue them, right? Yeah, so the judicial system can protect the justice.
The innovations and flourishing of the society come from the free will for the intellectual, for general people. If you destroy that basic rights, you restrict creations, innovation of individuals' abilities. So respect the rights, preserve the rights, protect the rights, will generally help the individual life and the flourishing of the society. Human rights traditionally has very little to do with science and engineering, but in recent centuries has become more and more increasingly important with STEM, particularly engineering, because the advancement of technology, that technology is double-bladed knife, can be used by good people to improve the individual quality of life. But if you go into the hand of the bad guys, the technology, engineering will be used to hurt the human rights. The business, American industry, the business want to make money, is to have economic income. This needs to be balanced with the human rights situation, particularly when you are doing business with those closed society, dictatorship society. It's very important you are alert about that.
The average American really does have a unique position to be able to promote the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You can talk about with your local people. If you're working in a company, you can bring it to the company. If it's a large global company, you can ask if in your supply chain of the products that are coming in, are these produced by people that have access to basic human rights? You can approach your congressman and your senator. You can approach your governor in that state and say, these are important, and I know a group of people in a particular place that aren't granted it.
Well, some of the most important human rights issues today are summed up, I think, in the words of an African ambassador with whom I was in a conversation the other day. And it's treat us like people, not like objects. That we want you to be our partners, we're not welfare cases. The question, what should human rights advocates in the future be doing? I think they need to focus on the human part of human rights, not the rights part. And so if you think about what does that mean? It's the human dimension of human rights that doesn't get talked about very often.
The Universal Declaration is a catalog of rights, and it doesn't purport to be anymore. Now, it's an integrated catalog, and that's often ignored. It's not just an arbitrary catalog. As I mentioned, it came from this survey across cultures, and it sees these rights integrated together, working for the good of the human person and the common good. But it doesn't explain the deep philosophical reasons for this, and Catholic social teaching provides that.
I think it's very important to have young people engaged in debates over human rights. Human rights, of course, are wonderful things, be it civil, political, economic, social, or cultural rights. I think it's important, though, for young people to understand, and the Commission on Unalienable Rights pointed this out, there are limits to human rights. They need to be grounded in good theory and good practice, and I think one of the dangers is there's a great temptation to pursue human security and to adopt a large amount of human rights that aren't necessarily core principal rights, fundamental freedoms, and it takes good young people to realize the difference between just making human rights out of thin air or grounding them in such things as our own Bill of Rights or the Declaration of Independence or the European Convention on Human Rights.
I've seen movements of people started by 5th grade classes, one in Colorado I remember in particular, that starts this movement to free some kids in a country that was a long ways away, and they were successful. You can do it. Just feel in your heart what it is that really should take place that you could help and you could work with, and start doing it.
Every day, the authoritarian regimes like the Communist Party persecute hundreds of activists. Millions of people have been put in prison or killed because they opposed the Communist Party. It is time to fight for human rights in every country now. If we fail to defend the human rights, authoritarian regimes will continue to threaten our freedom.